Let's cover the Mundell-Fleming ISLM model. This is the short-run model, and we're not going to change too much in our ordinary ISLM. The changes that we are going to make is that now more explicitly we're going to have net exports be a function of the exchange rate. Since the price levels are fixed in the Keynesian sort of model, short run, the exchange rate can be the nominal rate or the real rate because price levels are fixed, and so the nominal and the real move in the same way together. Remember, the real exchange rate is the nominal exchange rate adjusted by the relative price levels of the two countries. If those are not changing, then there's no difference. So we have GDP equals the sum of its components. I've just left out the government sector here because it's not really going to do anything. So we have GDP equals consumption plus investment plus net exports. We have our money demand function equals money supply, and then we have our equilibrium condition in international finance, which is that net exports has to be equal to capital flows. So remember, these are capital outflows that we're measuring here that depend on the interest rate. The higher our interest rate, the lower our capital outflows. The lower our interest rate, the higher our capital outflows. Net exports have to be equal to capital flows as a matter of the balance of payments accounting, right? The only way we can really save abroad is if we export more than we import. That way we accumulate claims against foreigners. So a capital outflow has to be accompanied by an export surplus, a trade current account surplus. So this gives us three equations with three unknowns: the exchange rate, interest rate, and GDP. And you might be asking, well, what about the foreign interest rate? Where's that? We could embed that in the capital flow equation, have an R star standing for the foreign interest rate. We also have neglected in this very simple model that net exports also depend on GDP. So we might want to include that. And we have all the other complications. So we're doing just the very, very simplest version of the ISLM with a foreign sector. So what did we do with this? Well, notice that since net exports equals capital flows, we can just plug the capital flows into the net exports in the first equation, and then we get one equation with, or two equations with two unknowns. This looks just like now our ISLM, where we have GDP equals the sum of its components of money supply equals money demand. But our IS curve now is going to be flatter, so it's taking into account now that increases in interest rate cause appreciation of the dollar, of the home currency, and that means that net exports decline and capital flows decline. Net exports decline means that GDP will be lower than it would be. So the IS curve will be flatter. A small change in the interest rate will lead to a larger change in GDP. Yeah, so otherwise everything is the same. We have an equilibrium interest rate and an equilibrium level of GDP, and then we take that equilibrium interest rate, plug it into the capital flow, and that then tells us what the exchange rate has to be. That's the equilibrium exchange rate. So that's all we do in this model. So pretty simple extension. We can now use the model to understand what happens when government increases its spending. So we get increase in GDP. The IS curve shifts out as usual. But now something else happens. The IS curve shifts out, GDP goes up, but the interest rates also go up. That causes an appreciation, and that causes net exports and capital flows to go down. So we have another effect that goes on when we have increase in government spending, another kind of crowding out. In government spending increasing crowds out the investment sector and also crowds out the export sector. With monetary policy, we also again have another effect. We represent an expansionary monetary policy with a shift out of the LM curve, interest rates go down, that means that there's a depreciation with lower interest rates. Capital flows and net exports go up. Remember, this is capital outflow, so interest rates abroad are higher, so capital flows out, and the only way for capital flows out, right, is for net exports to increase. So we get a boost to GDP. So monetary policy, with a floating exchange rate in this large country case, monetary policy becomes more effective, fiscal policy becomes less effective. And that's a very brief intro to the Mundell-Fleming extension of the ISLM model.